What's going on, everybody? It's your boy C-Zar, and we are talking about Bitcoin today. It is the 17th day of September, and here we are sitting at about $116.2 thousand. 10 hours, 33 minutes left in the day. We are down a little bit, down about 0.5%, but overall up from yesterday. Overall, we're at some of the higher prices that we've been at in the last week, so even though we're down, we're up, you know what I mean? It is the day of the Federal Reserve announcement, the FOMC announcement of what they're intending to do with rate cuts and other things, right? The rate cuts are the main thing that people look forward to. I very much do believe that we're going to hear that there are going to be rate cuts. A lot of people are anticipating, you're hearing people on X.com saying 300 basis points, 500 basis points, they're going to cut by 150 basis points. They're probably not going to cut by anything more than 25, maybe 50 at the most. At the most. They've been pretty transparent. People like to think that the Federal Reserve, because it's not a government organization, but because it's a organization that's like higher up, I don't know what to call it, an independent, any kind of organization at all. They like to think that there's like some ulterior motives and that they're sneaky, and maybe there are ulterior motives built in, but they're not sneaky. They're actually very transparent. In my 10 years doing this, they're very transparent. They tell you what they're gonna do. They tell you what they're gonna do months ahead of time. You guys know that in May, Jerome Powell was saying they're probably looking to cut rates in September. It's September now, and they're cutting rates. Did you know that? Did you know that? Yeah, back in May, in the FOMC meeting, was it May or was it April? Well, whatever month the FOMC meeting was there, I forget if it was on both months, but if it was on both months, then I think it was May. They said that they were looking to cut rates in September. They said this months ago. So then everybody expecting rate cuts from then on. I was expecting rate cuts every month up until that point. And then it's like, okay, well, they're not going to cut rates because that's what he said. And here we are. I'm just saying. Anyways, they're very transparent. $116.2 thousand right now. We're not here to talk about Jay Powell or the Federal Reserve. We're here to talk about the price of Bitcoin, okay? The meeting happens, the FOMC announcement happens at 2:30. It's not 2 o'clock anymore. It got pushed back 30 minutes. Federal Reserve made an announcement on X.com yesterday saying that. So 2:30 is when they're going to do it. That is about 5.5 hours before the end of the day. We got 10.5 hours left in the day here. So we got about 5 hours before the announcement, 5.5 hours after the announcement. I'm expecting a little bit of volatility today. If I had to guess, I would think we do move back up into the announcement. We look at this here. From a high to a low, we're right below the golden ratio. And I want to explain to you guys my kind of line of thinking whenever it comes to this, okay? This is how I think. This isn't necessarily how you should think, but this is just how I think when looking at the Fibonacci retracement, okay? Typically, you find resistance at the 382. If you find support at the 236, you go to the golden ratio, typically. If you do the untypical thing, which is you stop before the golden ratio, then typically what you do is you come back to the 382 or the 236, or even you go lower, right? But we did two things that weren't typical. 382, 236, we didn't hit the golden ratio. That's not typical. And then we didn't reject down, which is not also typical. So what we're in right now is actually a bullish standing, not a bearish standing. I don't care that today looks the way it does so far. I would think if we wanted to go down lower, okay, if this was a fake out and we were going to go lower, we would have done it here because we reached for the golden ratio without getting there. That's not a good thing. But what we did actually was we held up at the 0.5. And this kind of behavior is normally congruent with the thought of going to the 786, 886. So I think we're going to push higher, at least get into the golden ratio. But then if we think about it outside of the Fibonacci retracement there, where we're stopping in the golden ratio, it's kind of like right here in the midst of this range. To me, it would make a lot more sense to go all the way up to the prior resistance points of this range, maybe even this prior resistance point here, or let's even put it all the way up here, something like that. I don't know. We take this all-time high to this low here, and you can see that the 786 is lining up with two of these areas right here, right? Because we stopped right here, we take this away. The 886 is all the way up here, right, with these kind of wicks here. There's a lot of sense to be made of this 120.5 to 122.3K area, okay? There's a lot of sense to be made with that. And that doesn't mean that we're going there today. That doesn't mean we're going there before the announcement. I just think that's where we're going before we see any kind of correction. Maybe, with the FOMC announcement happening at 2:30 Eastern time, which is 5.5 hours before today's close, we could absolutely see some volatility in the wake of that. I'm anticipating that we'll sell off. I'm anticipating that we'll get the good news that we were looking for, and we will do the classic thing that happens with good news. We will sell the news. Because why? And everybody wonders, why do we sell with good news? Why does that happen? Well, because you got to think about it. You're not the first person to hear about this good news. There are insiders who hear about this good news well before it actually happens. So the way that works is the insiders make plays. We all know that. It might be illegal to do insider trading and stuff like that, but it happens, right? It happens. You think that once Jerome Powell announces that they're cutting rates by whatever they're deciding to cut rates by, that he's the first person to say it and nobody else knows at all? No, all his constituents, all the people at the board, they're meeting, and then they tell the people who tell their people who tell their people, that's just how it happens. It's all, and maybe not all of them do that, but there's some insider plays that get made. It happens. We're human beings. And the thing is it's kind of, at this point in time in history, it's expected of them. Like that, we already know it happens. We can say it's illegal, and we can whine about it all we want, but it happens. And it's just something that they get away with, unfortunately or fortunately enough. So with that in mind, people make plays on it beforehand, and then whenever everybody else hears the news, they dump on you. Right? Because then you buy the news, they sell to you, you panic sell because it dumps afterwards, they buy it back. It's a good way to just play the game. That's typically why you sell the news. Typically why when there's good news you sell the news. Not always. It's like 90% of the time, but that typically happens. And that doesn't mean that just because you sell the news now it's going down for a month or a week. It just, it's just like maybe a momentary thing to last for a day, or a couple days, or a week. Nothing too long. Anyways, and it's not going to be this dramatic drop. Anyways, looking at this here, I fully expect that here on the 18th hour, it'd be 18 and a half hours, but this is the hourly time frame, so we don't get the halves. This is the hour that the announcement happens. I would fully expect that we do continue to grow into that announcement. We'll see. Looking at the 1 hour RSI, well, this doesn't go with what I just said there, because what we did was we broke out of this uptrend, higher lows, higher highs. Breaking out of that uptrend is not a good look in itself, to be completely fair. We do have lower lows here in the RSI. We do have lower, hold on. We have higher lows here, but lower lows here and lower lows there. Stochastics are in the oversold zone. This is an area to bounce at, but sometimes we can linger in this area, right? Maybe we stay in this area the whole time until the FOMC meeting, and then we drop a little bit more, and then we come up. I don't know. MACD looks like it could come down more, and then we move up. The MACD will continue to come down even if we just move sideways. Even if we move up a little bit, we're not moving up too much. So I guess I would expect that we go a little bit lower here. Let's look at the 15-minute time frame. Bullish divergence on the RSI and the MACD and the stochastics. I don't know. That's disagreeing with the 1 hour there. I would think that we move up. Let's look at the 4 hour time frame. The 4 hour is bullish overall. I like the RSI. I like the MACD, and the stochastics are great too. I think the stochastics are pretty damn good as well, actually. Crossing out of the overbought zone, though, is not what you want to see. Bearish engulfing candle here, though, is not what you want to see either. Very good overall, but could imply downside. It would just be weird. What I would say is, regardless of what happens between now and the announcement and after the announcement, whatever happens, I really wouldn't expect that we see any kind of dramatic sell-off, right? My thoughts are, from a high to a low, if we were to return down to this 113.5K area, we would have done it already. Not that we can't return down there, but I think we'd have higher prices to go first at the very least before doing that, okay? I don't know where we're going to find support. Maybe it's here, maybe it's a higher low. Maybe we do our thing, we move all the way up to the 786, 886 area, and then we come back down to the golden ratio zone, or we come back down to the 0.5 area. If we do find resistance at the golden ratio, typically what happens is you find support at the 0.5 or the 382 or somewhere in between, right? That's kind of what you do. So it just depends on where we stop. I don't think that we're stopping here. Again, I don't think we're stopping here, because if we were, we would have stopped here already. Like, if you know what I mean? Doesn't mean that we can't stop here. Anything can happen. But if we do stop here, the area intended would be about 113.5K to 115.5K, something like that for support, okay? And probably the area, not the exact levels as a whole. Could you go below this line and still be okay? Yes. If we go below 113.5K, we're fine. But again, at this point in time, I'm thinking if we were to do that, we would have done it over this past week. I don't think we're going to do it. So my thoughts are we do move up. Time will tell. I don't really have anything else that I want to say. We can look at the weekly time frame here real quick. Let's see. Looking at this overall, you know, from our all-time high to our low back here in the beginning of this month. I would think that our next target area is about 130K to 136.4K. We'll stop somewhere around there, consolidate, and continue on our merry way higher. We look at our prior like significant consolidation phase from January to April, and our golden ratio here at 140K is very near that golden ratio. Typically, you like to wick above your golden ratio, so maybe we actually do just beeline it all the way up to like 142, 144K. Inevitably, I think that we are going to be working our way up into the end of the month at to higher levels, new all-time highs by the end of September, and then going into October, we should be. I think October is going to be a very explosive month. If we look at this on a monthly time frame, Bitcoin hasn't really had an explosive month in a while, right? This is what I mean. Like if we're at the end of the cycle, and I think that we are, we're at the end of the cycle here, right? That doesn't mean that this is the last month. This doesn't mean that this is the last quarter. We're just at the end of the cycle, which means that we have less than a year. Less than a year. That's the end of the cycle. We have less than a year left in this cycle again. We're going to see movements that are bigger than anything else. We haven't had a month like this in a while. We're going to get months like these, guys, where let's see, the biggest month that we've seen so far, 39%, 43%, 37%. We're going to see a month that's bigger than 40%. Let's pretend that we close around our all-time highs this month. Maybe not a new all-time highs, but around our all-time highs. If we moved up 43% or more, that puts us at about, or sorry, 40% or more. Let's do 40%. Let's be very nitpicky here. 40% or more, that puts us at 172K. If we see a bigger month, and I think that we will, if we were capable of it back here, I think we're capable of it here personally. High to low, more than capable of it. That puts us right at our golden ratio, okay? And then maybe we top off a little bit in November. We continue to rally and in the beginning, and then November is a little bit of a corrective month, and then we continue to rally going into the end of November and December and January there. That's kind of how my thoughts are as far as this is going to work out, but time will tell. I'm expecting a big month in October, and I think that by the end of September we'll be significantly higher than we are now. If not at new all-time highs, very near new all-time highs. But I got nothing else for you guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, hit the like button, subscribe. Thank you all for being here. I'll see you on the next one, okay? Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.